The ode chain is Ryu's final focus arc for the series, beginning with a visit to his family's grave, only to find someone has been there recently. Regardless, he goes to visit Akiko, only to find the detectives with an odd case on their hands. A contagious case of old.
Yeah! Age is a virus! Quarantine the elderly!
Yeah, this little girl, Miyu, is now Granny. The group heading out to find the culprits and their motivations.
Unfortunately, the entire structure of this plot works better had they excised the children's participation, and instead done this with teen actresses, as it more justifies a jealous girl learning of and contracting the actual culprits. At the very least, there'd be fewer actors involved.
As the one responsible for putting the hit out on Miyu is one of her classmates' mothers, who wanted their little pretty princess to get the part Miyu was just given for their grade school play. Yes, their grade school play. Not something that can make or break an actress's career with a heavyweight theatrical performance, but house moms being bitchy because their little darlings that they live vicariously through by forcing them into this crap are being outstaged by people they are friends with. And any moral high ground is lost once they find the ager, and the client goes and hires him to do the same thing to the first mom's daughter as well, instead of, I don't know, paying him to turn her daughter back to normal!
To be honest, doing it this way is the more people are horrible to each other interpretation for things, and does play into Ryu's parts in all this for his arc. It's just really damn frustrating, as there's still nothing here that necessitated child actors. This same plot, but with teens in place of the kids, makes it work far better. The role could then hinge on, say, a scholarship, or admission into an acting school, or an idol contract, which would all play into facilitating this, instead of the mothers being bitches to each other for no reason other than their own self-gratification.
As, skipping ahead a bit, this is the arc that reveals what Shroud did to Isaka that made him give his warning upon death's door. Shroud is the one that gave Isaka the weather memory. She is the reason why Ryu's family is dead, as she gave him that memory with hope that she could use Isaka's obsession with Ryubi and the terror memory to get him to go after them and kill him, only for Isaka in turn to just go and create more victims along the way. And she in turn is consumed with a need for vengeance in the name of what Ryubi did to Philip and the rest of their family, of how he made them all monsters, and to also protect her son from them, even if it would have caused him to become a weapon, as long as it kept him safe. That is all a valid reason for her actions, as horrible as they have been. That is not given to these two spiteful women that are using their children as proxies for their own egos, which their story is supposed to be used as a parallel with Shroud's. But that isn't connecting as that, because the two case moms had no reason beyond themselves to actually pull this crap!
私はただ娘のために。
違う。あんたは自分の憎しみをぶつけただけだ。
And yet, focus on guest child actors screws up an otherwise good plot. And yeah, this is another Keiichi Hasegawa script. Every story related to this series I have serious issue with exception of Double Returns Eternal, is written by him. What the hell?
To make things even worse, it has previously been established that hiring a dopant to commit a crime, and profiteering from the natures of their powers in such a manner as this does qualify, means jail time for their clients if there's no other mitigating circumstances. And there is not for these women. They are now criminals by hiring the ager to commit these acts, and they are never charged for it or made to own up to their actions.
I mean, at the very least, the whole thing with the idiot teen hiring the cockroach dopant did it on jest and on accident, and immediately did everything he could to stop what resulted. And yet was villainized for it. These jackasses get off scot-free!
Watchman provides the contact details, coming from a code phrase said to a fortune teller, with Akiko used as bait to find them, thus encountering... Old! Bit on the nose, but whatever. However, the way Old ages things is by hitting them with a miasma, just like terrors. And while both writers are hit with it, Ryu is unaffected.
This is a recurring thing in Sanjo and Hasegawa's works, seen later most pertinently in Drive, though it pops up a bit in 4s. People who have evolved an innate immunity to psychological affecting powers. It rarely makes sense.
As what both Old and Terror's abilities do is translate a mental attack into a physical one, imparting the idea of age or fear onto their bodies, but bypassing the body's resilience as it's not actually attacking them physically.
Or, to do a Pokemon parallel, it's like Mewtwo's Psystrike move. It deals physical damage, but is a special category attack.
But because of this, now Shotaro has effectively become Old Man Billy.
I can't wait until he has the shoehorned-in fishman romance that gets him put on the bus.
Ryu catches sight of Shroud, admitting she set this all up just to get Shotaro out of the picture, as to fight Ryubi, Ryu's special body is needed as the basis of Double, and why she courted him after she got his family killed. As together, they can create the ultimate form of Double.
That looks terrible.
No, her vision of the ultimate Double is Cyclone Axle Extreme. As shown before, the X-Tori amplifies the power of the most compatible memories used in the fusion. Philip and Shotaro's Cyclone and Joker, those they're most attuned with, thus the ones needed to get Extreme to work. But substitute in Ryu, and his super compatible memory is Axle, which is already attuned to amplify force through movement. So think of the force amplification one could achieve if the wind is accelerating them further.
And it was only ever seen used in the video game Kamen Rider Climax Heroes O's. For as shown with Extreme's debut episode, it would be a complete and utter betrayal of Shotaro for them to do so.
And they reject Shroud's suggestion completely and utterly. But as Philip enters the library to find info on Old, he finds Wakana frantically searching for information on Shroud after Ryubi had earlier made mention of her, desperate to find her. Philip is confused by why, as he doesn't know she's their mother. Jun admits this, finally admits to Sayako what's in the case he keeps with him at all times. The culmination of the Gaia Memory Development Project. T2, short for Type 2, Gaia Memories, based on Shroud's refined Gaia Memories. These ones retaining the full powers of a dopant, but lack any corrupting influence on their users. They are what has been desired from all of Ryubi's experiments. Keys to the ultimate superhuman weapons. Philip finds and confronts the Ager, using Fang Joker to battle it as he's also immune to its power, only for his left half to be entirely limp due to what's happened to Shotaro.
Why I think that happens, as opposed to the show's reasoning, is because of Old's power being a mental attack. Fang's use causes Shotaro's mind to be transferred to Philip's body, so since that's been corrupted by Old's power, it can't function correctly. Though that may be just as much due to the senility he's experiencing.
But as that occurs, Ryu approaches Sayako for context on why Shroud hates Ryubi, only to learn the role she played in enabling Isaka. And his eyes, fantastic acting by the way, tell it all. And this drives him to confront Shroud and learn the truth from her. Only she is too focused on how he can be used to end Ryubi once and for all. That giving him Axel was merely training for his real purpose of partnering with Philip, after her plans with Isaka fell through. As for her victims, and those of her pawns...
For, as this also reveals, as much as she hates Ryubi, she also hates herself for what she let occur.
For as Wakana comes to confront her mother and breaking off this confrontation, Ryu sees that the field they were in contains the same flowers placed at his family's grave. What Shroud was offering him just now was her life in exchange for the ones her callous actions took, and can never give back. More than what he could do to Terror, giving Ryu the power of Axel was an attempt to repent for her sin. And hate the motivator she champions, as her hatred for Ryubi, after she was scarred and almost died from Terror's power, is the only thing that kept her alive. But... because they have been given a greater power than that. A power to surpass what they once were without being consumed by a need for more. thanks to the teachings of Sokichi passed to them through their embodiment in Shotaro. As they confront Old, they show what that has brought.
よく見ていろ、シラウザー。憎しみのダブルなど必要ない。俺を強くしたのは仮面ライダーになる男だ。奴が目の前にいるのに。復讐どころか誰一人まともに守ることもできない。心の叫びまで検索できるのか。家族の仇を撃てるなら俺はどうなってもいい。思ってるのはお前だけだ。君にとって仮面ライダーとは何なんだ。行く先を変えよう。大丈夫、君は俺が守る。お前の心は俺が背負って生きる。全て振り切るぜ。憎しみなんかじゃない。俺はダブルではなく仮面ライダーアクセルだ。ケンジマキシマムドライブ。
With Shotaro and the other victims returned to normal, they confront Shroud over what she's done, and she confesses to the guilt of it all. She owns her sin. Without distortion, without falsehood, without twisting things to justify her past actions. She knows the cost of them, and accepts that she is damned, willing to pay for it all in the end.
And that is, in a way, why she can be forgiven, at least by this small group, as they can understand why, and take up the duty to stop Museum for good, only doing so the right way.
誰も傷つける必要はない。
And this is the last thing Ryu needed to move on with his life. The last stage in the cycle of grief is acceptance. With that, he's finally truly free to move on, and find someone to share his life with, like Akiko, who at this point he is confirmed to be dating. But elsewhere, Jun hands over the T2 memories for transport to their headquarters.
This is exactly where in continuity Double Forever falls. Yes, it is 100% canon with the series. Jun's subplot with Briefcase is set up for it. So, stop the video here, go watch my review of that film, it should be up by now.
For those not going over to that, Who the K Needs opens right after that film, with Futo Tower in need of massive repair caused by the events in Double Forever, Shotaro musing over its fallout when a client comes.
あなた探偵？ちょうどいいわ。私の依頼を受けなさい。
Wow, Ryu must have liked it rough to let Mel keep the whip.
This is Kyoko Todoroki, played by Yuka Hirata, previously of Geki Ranger, and she has a contract from the Futo Museum.
And you're dressed like Rule 63 Indiana Jones. Why?
Seems her boss lost something important to him, and she wants to find it for him. What is it?
Oh, yeah, and her boss is Ryubi.
Shotaro accepts, realizing this is the chance to get close to him and confront him to shut the museum down. He, Akiko, and Kyoko heading down into the excavated caverns beneath Futo that we've seen Ryubi in previously. Though as they search, Kyoko admits she has no idea what they're looking for. Aki, however...
How many of those shoes do you have in that bag? You seem to have one for every occasion.
Philip, however, finds a new book in the library that was previously restricted to him. On him. Akio's slippers find the case for the evil tale, only for Terror to show up and demand it.
That sounds like the name of a Final Fantasy limit break.
They're forced to retreat, Shotaro chickening out from fighting him, for a reason explained later. Kyoko's in denial over her boss's identity, as focus is given to Philip and him talking about his book, how he's not sure if he can read it, and he's scared at what it might reveal. Scared of who he might have been.
無理もね。それだけお前にとっちゃ重い一冊なんだ。
And you're going to carry that weight.
Kyoko flees with the case right to Ryubi, who reveals what the Gaia impact is, an attempt for humanity to escape their inevitable extinction by forcing humanity to continue down the path of evolution.
His big plan is the Human Instrumentality Project. Please, no. I'd rather not be turned into Tang.
But before he can get the case, Shotaro and Ryu arrive, ready to take him on.
そう簡単にお前の思い通りにはさせんぞ。この町の涙は俺たちが拭う。
The longer you use a memory, the more its power leaks into you for use outside of the memory. And Ryubi has been using terror for 10 years.
And every time Shotaro has met him, he's been affected by terror's power, bit by bit, accumulating until now an uneasiness that was unconsciously causing him to avoid Ryubi, like everyone else in town, and has now reached the point of triggering every instinct Shotaro has to flee.
初めて私の姿を見た時から、君はすでに負けていたのだよ。
Ryu has no such affliction, but instead gets manhandled by Smilodon, all while Philip finally reads his book and discovers who he is. With that knowledge, he rushes to the battlefield and defeats Smilodon by a feeding tactic Ryubi uses to distract it, and reveal that Mick was in fact his cat.
And yet the internet didn't fall in love with him. I'm confused how he never became a meme.
But by having read his book, they all realize he now knows what Ryubi wants from him. Philip is key to the Gaia impact, but Terra's effect on Shotaro only continues to worsen, as he unleashes a new power.
Goddamn, this is something I expect from Garo.
So, with Ryu injured and Shotaro effectively catatonic, Ryubi can claim his prize. But as much as Philip tries to resist, Ryubi has always known the reality of what he is, and why.
あんなの嘘だ!
嘘ではない。お前は死んだのだ。
He's been dead for 12 years. On the day Ryubi and his workers discovered the fountain connecting to the true Gaia memory, a 5-year-old Raito Sonozaki fell into it, and to his death. The man we have known throughout this series is nothing but an avatar, a digital projection by the Earth, who by taking that dying child into it, understood the pain of loss, and in an act of compassion, revived him as its herald, and returned him to his distraught family.
But this is why the Sonozakis could treat him so horribly. They don't see Raito. They just see the thing that was given back to them, not realizing that amid that massive data was everything their son and brother was. Shroud realized that, but Ryubi made him his tool instead, and it's a tool he now takes back, with Shotaro unable to do anything.
君はもう終わりだ。一生恐怖の中で生きる。
Sayako and Shroud are given invites to a dinner party, the pair showing to reunite in full the Sonozakis on the final night of the Earth. Ryubi elated that they'll all now be reunited. But Phil tries to reason with them. They're all back together now. They don't need to do anything else. They can stop all of this. But it's far too late. The hatred among parents, the animosity among siblings, the neglect of Sayako that set her off on her path of spite in the face of the doting of Wakana, and the Gaia memory itself has tainted it too far to ever repair. This family is fundamentally broken. The only reason Ryubi even called them was in hopes Sayako and Shroud could repent for their sins towards the coming new goddess of the world, so she would show mercy.
And ironically, because of Sayako through proxy Misaka's tweaking of her driver, she no longer has any.
Thus, the sisters engage each other one final time, Sayako losing hard and fleeing, as Shroud too leaves this farce.
家族を放っておくんですか?
お前の家族はもうその先ではない。左翔太郎よ。
See? In the end, she could come to accept Philip's life choices.
忘れないで。切り札は左翔太郎。
For he is the Quasar Todorock!
Dawn breaks on the final day, Shotaro too consumed with fear of, well, everything, that even his phone ringing sets him in a panic. But the call carrying Philip's words is one he needs to hear.
でも忘れないでくれ、相棒。僕は消えない。君の心に悪魔と相乗りする勇気をある限り。
And this wakes Shotaro up, ashamed at himself and beginning to fight back. But it isn't until Kyoko returns with the stolen contents of the evil tail case does he snap out of it. Ryubi takes Philip down to the memory fountain, planning to throw him back into it so he'll be uploaded back into the true Gaia memory, and thus be used as a control program by Wakana to create true, living Gaia memories they'll merge with people to fuse them with the Earth.
あなたはそれでいいんですか？
お前は一度死んだ。もはや救えない。
He's not, though. Philip's return was a miracle. A gift from the Earth in penance for a pointless tragedy, and they wasted that precious gift. Incidentally, fuck Kamen Tyson for saying that any type of attachment to the dead is evil, when this in and of itself refutes that, as it wasn't the resurrection that was the root of evil in this series, but how that gift was abused in the name of power.
僕はあなたを救いたい。さらばだライト。
Philip's digitized and Gaia impact begins, but upon opening the case, Shotaro arrives and reveals what the evil tale is. A charmed brush with the names of the Sonozakis written upon it, signed on the day they were all last together before Raito died.
返せ。私の家族だ。
And with that one line, do we understand Terror's motivations? For all the evil he has wrought, the truth is, Ryubi Sonozaki is just a broken man, trying to find meaning and purpose in a senseless tragedy, and truly reunite everyone with those they've lost beyond the touch of death. But in doing so, he detached himself from his feelings, so he saw no difference between those who were living and those who were dead.
あんたは自分の道を誤り、そうなっていく自分が恐ろしかった。だから幸せだった頃の象徴であるこのハケを家族自身とすり替え、自分の気持ちをごまかしてきた。
And faced with a man like that, one so pitiful inside, how can Shotaro fear him?
あいつが俺を相棒と呼ぶ限り、俺は折れない。
And so, he calls out and achieves his own miracle. As with Philip sending Cyclone to him from within the true Gaia memory, his consciousness is pulled out, and since his mind was processing Gaia impact, the program breaks.
街を泣かせてきた諸悪の根源、園崎龍兵衛。さあ、お前の罪を数えろ。
Ryu arrives, injured, but more than able to back them up.
それで悪を砕けるなら、人形でも何でも構わん。
Thus, he takes on the Terror Dragon, as the X-Tori recovers Philip's body data, causing Claydol to crash permanently, and Terror unable to keep up without his fear to paralyze them. And with that rider kick, Terror is broken, and the Sonozaki home is set ablaze. Ryubi stumbling into it, and consumed by his own delusions, lost to the memory of his family's joy, his home burns down around him.
私の人生に後悔はない。
So the case is closed, and while there are still memories out there, Museum won't be experimenting on people anymore. Philip left with nothing but the remnants of his broken family. But we're not done yet. For Junkazu has recovered Wakana's body, leading into the series' climax, the Abandoned You. Shotaro tries to make Philip feel better by finding the one remaining piece of his family left, Mick, and returning the cat to him, all while Wakana begins to send signals of distress through the mutual link of the library. Philip, realizing his sister's alive, asks Shotaro to accept him as a client and save her, as he doesn't have much time left.
もちろん引き受けるさ。お前のために耐えらんねえことなんかねえわ。
Because damn it, everything is gay about this.
Jun reveals to his superior, Neon Ulsland, that he has taken over Gaia memory production and the plans for Gaia Impact. But Neon's less than interested, as Foundation X thinks they've gotten everything they possibly could out of Museum's research, and there are new avenues for power they could be exploring, such as the core and cell metals, which are the focus of Kamen Rider O's.
And yeah, that's canon. While it's questionable whether Foundation X are a backer to O's Kodagami Foundation, I don't believe it was ever stated explicitly either way, we see that they'd scavenged a large mass of cell metals for their own use later, and recreated the various O's Kaijin as doppelganger monsters down the line, as is part of their edict. As Movie War Megamax is a canon movie, and O's is shown to already be active at this time, thanks to Double Forever also being a canon movie.
This is, of course, part of what was different in Neo Heisei with the continuous continuity thing. On top of the early bird cameos in the movies, each series would give things that would lead into the next one, though usually with the following ones all giving last-minute cameos in the final episodes as the seed for that. It's been hit and miss, but here plays a significant part into why Jun is now pressured to make the continuance of Gaia memory development profitable in their eyes. They have something else now that they could be focusing their resources on, and it's because of the events of this next show. Remove that, and you lose that aspect of this story. Ryu and Shotaro track down Sayako at, of all things, a racetrack, thinking she might know something about Wakana's whereabouts, but she's as surprised as them to learn of her survival, just as Jun comes to bring her into this new operation. Why?
好きだからですよ。あなたが。
私がどこへ行こうが勝手でしょ。
Dude, take the hint. She just isn't into you.
Still, this is where Jun introduces himself to the riders as Museum's research overseer, and how he's continuing every bit of it onwards, revealing his own Gaia memory.
これは私と適合率 98%。
ユートピア
But as Ryu engages Jun, Philip refuses to transform with Shotaro, as they need to save it.
今度ダブルに変身したら僕の体は消滅してしまう。この地上から永遠に。
Axel gets entirely wrecked by Utopia, the dope punt reflecting all of the force of Ryu's blows back upon him. Utopia drags Sayako away, Jun revealing to her his vision of Gaia Impact, to digitize Wakana and use her in a satellite that will rain a reformatted type of evolution energy, changing them instead into Necro-Overs.
人類選別の儀式。
We'll swing back to this in the Double Returns Eternal review.
Philip finds the location of the last installation thanks to clues in Sayako's speech, prepared to go, but Shotaro's not, wanting to know what went wrong.
And it's all because when they recovered his data from the Gaia Impact, they didn't get all of it. Thus, what he came back as is damaged and breaking down. Digitizing his mind or body for transformation to Double will cause it to all come apart.
今度ダブルになったら僕の体は完全に消え地球の記憶の一部となってしまうだろう。
And there's nothing they can do to stop it. All they can do is send him off with no regrets.
諦めてくれ。
バカ野郎んなこと諦められっかよ
How can he just give up on the person that matters most to him? Thus, he goes to Shroud, as she has to have some solution to this. She saved him before. And she doesn't. There's nothing she can do.
おやっさんから託された俺の一番でっかい依頼なんだなのに
成海宗吉にライトを救うことを依頼したのはこの私。
She's the one who asked him to save Philip. Reunite them, only for it to be too late. Her son, truly now, was gone. All but a shell due to his memory loss, and thus why she couldn't be around him, and why she tried to turn him into a weapon. As either way, she could never regain what she so desperately wanted. But even then, as much as she derided Shotaro for who he was, she recognized that more than anyone else, he treated Philip as the person he was, not the thing he came back as. Shotaro gave him life again.
もはやライトは復元されたデータの塊ではない。お前のおかげだ。
But she's accepted that her son, once more because of her family, is going to die again. Shotaro returns to the office, only to find Philip handing out gifts to the irregulars. Going away presents, as they all think he's now going off to school. A lie, but one Akiko made in hopes that the last moments they all have can at least be fond ones.
僕は人との付き合いに興味がなかった。君のことに関しては全て閲覧し終えたよ。もう興味も湧かない。悪魔みたいなやつだった。何がおかしい？この悪魔野郎。でも翔太郎に連れられてこのフードに来て大好きさ。街もみんなも。
The last gift is for Shotaro, but it's left alone for now. The next day, the riders invade the base, Axel taking the heat off of them, but as they find Wakana and June, Shotaro hesitates. He can't let Philip go. But in doing so, their chance to save Wakana is lost, and Utopia overwhelms them all.
ユートピアとは希望の力のメモリ。君の生きる気力をもらい、私の力とした。その結果を味わいなさい。
And worse, with June trying to force Wakana in sync with the Earth, the mutual link with her brother is expediting that process, as she begins to feel what he does. June, realizing all he needs, is to torture everything Philip cherishes.
ちょっと死んでみてください。ライト君の前で。
Before he can, however, Sayako intervenes with Taboo, as she retrieved it earlier, ordering them to flee. Why? She despises June. But even that is ineffective. Why? June himself is a Necro-Over, immune to the death Taboo's effects would have wrought upon him. Ryu's rushed into intensive care, only having survived that last battle due to his resistance to mental attacks. But as the pair argue over Shotaro's fault and his wish to not let Philip just die, neither realize that June's already moving on all of their friends, one by one, leaving them empty dolls, and calling to taunt him with the inevitability of their fate.
まさに私の理想郷、ユートピアだ。ふざけるな！今どこにいると思います？
And Akiko is the breaking point for both of them. Philip crying in the anguish he enabled, and Shotaro realizing his own selfishness in all of this. Shroud, in her own way, wished to let Philip die smiling, and Utopia has just stolen that smile. And even if it will cost him what he wants most, Shotaro is going to fix this, accepting there are some things which are beyond his power to change.
And thus, with all of this, the Abandoned You, at its core, is about coming to terms with and accepting the inevitability of mortality and death. Fuck Kamen Rider Tyson!
So as Psycho similarly dies trying to thwart June's plans once and for all, ironically trying to save the sister she despises, it's about time Shotaro stepped up and showed the world what he can do all on his own.
I'm a goofy goober! You're a goofy goober! We're all goofy goobers! Goofy, goofy, goober, goober, yeah!
Shotaro Hidari is the final trump!
But nonetheless, Shotaro did it, saved Wakana and stopped Third Impact. And in doing so, restored Philip's smile.
一人でよくやったね。すごいよ。
約束を守っただけだよ。
Which just leaves Jun Kazu.
この程度で私の計画が止まるとでも思うのか？
止めるさ。何度でも。 たとえお前らがどんなに強大な悪でも体一つになっても食らいついて倒す。その心そのものが仮面ライダーなんだ。行くよ翔太郎。最後の最後の変身。
And Utopia's own powers turn against him. For as he takes in Double's power, the strength of the pair's emotions overwhelm him. Both that of their final wish, and the acceptance of the fate of death, acting in defiance of the will to live he draws from. Jun dies, on his feet amusingly. Neon in the background formally cutting off all funding to memory development. They have O medals to focus on now.
And thus it's time to say goodbye, in arguably the best death scene Kamen Rider has ever done.
じゃあ行くよ。俺の手で大丈夫。これを閉じても僕たちは永遠に相棒だ。さよなら。
And now all he has left is his final gift. Philip's book and the Lost Driver.
僕の好きだった街をよろしく。仮面ライダー左翔太郎。見ててくれよ。な、フィリップ。
A year passes.
It's really more like 6 to 9 months.
And the city's recovered mostly from the dopant crime waves. Shotaro back to work, but with a different feel to him and how he acts to everyone. Still mourning Philip's loss, as not enough time has passed to not let every little thing he does remind him of his partner. As, even when you're accepting of death, it's hard to move on. And worse, Wakana, left in his care, escaped after waking up, taking the reality of Philip's sacrifice just as hard as Shotaro has once she learned it from him. Her whereabouts? Unknown. This is all dredged up when a young boy comes to the office wanting help saving a sister from EXE, a street gang that's been collecting Gaia memories, one of which the pair found and were trying to sell.
Oh, go back to Jewland! Your show doesn't start for 6 years yet!
And you! You're a bodacious space pirate princess! I don't care if your show doesn't start for 8 months yet! Kick his ass! They all think Shotaro's a wuss in face of that power, but Shotaro, all this time, has been performing solo. Perfect! Flawless victory! And with that, Exe's mostly disbanded, having managed to teach the boy something about the necessity of standing on your own. However, not all of Exe has been defeated.
Energy!
Huh. How Detective Noir.
But even better than having the strength to stand on your own is faith in the knowledge that there will always be someone else to have your back.
But I don't think they meant it this literally.
Yeah, they couldn't do it. And I don't really blame them, since unlike most other series, they established the out for it.
How? When Wakana disappeared the prior year, she executed Gaia Impact. Her version of Gaia Impact. The synchronicity they achieved thanks to June, alongside information provided by Shroud as Fumine too succumbed to her ailment, allowing her to transfer her physical body data to Philip, allowing him to live in the world again. Trading her life for his. It's just taken this long for the data transfer to settle and reconstitute his physical form. This is the means by which the Sonozaki family achieves their redemption. The life they should have treasured, the gift they should have coveted, given back to the world in order to make it a better place than the one they turned it into. And Philip has been watching over Shotaro all of this time, waiting for the day they could be reunited. Oh, for the last time, look up the damn term! But yeah, happy ending, with the return of Futo's eternal protector, the hero of two halves fused as one.
Kamen Rider Double is absolutely fantastic. Easily one of the best Kamen Rider series ever made, and I hope you can see why it's one of my favorites and has the popular appeal it does.
The plot is engaging, the characters, after some time with them, are highly appealing, the set design and series aesthetic are rarely matched in Toei productions, the suit designs are diverse and yet contiguous, the series soundtrack is absolutely excellent, and their use of the tracks is always perfectly appropriate for the mood and tone of the series. While the digital effects and some of the stunt work drag in some places, it never ultimately hinders the presentation of the narrative, and the subtle gestures, homages, and subtextual things makes you enjoy it more and more on rewatch as you catch little details you didn't before. Even when I was just coming into the franchise in 2009, much of what got me enamored with it came from this series. And I admit, when I then went back to the original shows in the Showa era, it had set a pretty damn high bar. To this day, the only show I can concretely say that's better than it is Black, though I did admittedly enjoy O's more on my initial watch of it, but that might change by the point I get around to reviewing it. Even Gaim admittedly has more logical gaps and used their characters less effectively than this series. But as I said at the beginning, this series just succeeds in so many areas the franchise has struggled with in prior years, and some of them past this. Excellent pacing, vibrant characters with not a bad one in the bunch, my issues with Akiko notwithstanding since she developed past her annoying days, little to no contradiction in its narrative that in other series some appreciation of its story, and the homages to older material are all respectful and used to accent their own story, calling back to the roots of what Kamen Rider is, and like Kuga, bringing it back to the forefront in the modern era.
When I reviewed Ryuki, I stated that it, through the depiction of its events, was the death of the Showa definition of Kamen Rider, its creators thinking the idea too old, or outdated, and the following years proved how bad it was to go it without, or to deride many of those tenets. Because this series, one more successful than any of them, puts someone that was the textbook definition of a Showa Rider protagonist, not a deconstruction, not a subversion, not someone who grew to showcase those traits, but someone with them from the beginning, back at the helm. Someone who cared about others, didn't act like a dick to those around them, or would regularly be demeaned or beaten down for showing kindness to someone. And it worked.
And as I think you can probably tell, while every character in this show is ultimately a good one, for me, Shotaro hit it out of the park as one of my favorite writer characters, period. He certainly does represent the honor of his namesake. And his partnership with Philip and their dynamic, whether you read into any possible romantic component or not, is one of the series' highlights, and not done in any other show to date. Akiko and Ryu still have arc stuff technically in the post-series content we still gotta go through, but together the four created a pretty balanced protagonist cast, all things considered, with each developing wonderfully.
Though that brings up the later issue some people have. And 5 years later, the complaint arose that Drive was trying to echo and mimic much of what was done with Double.
And yeah, there are similarities in their plot structuring, but that can be accounted by Drive also being a series written by Sanjo and Hasegawa, featuring a police detective fighting creations of mad science technology that one of the main cast had a hand in creating, only with them being androids instead of humans. Personally, I feel there's enough that diverged with the characters and the greater story to not see Drive as a potential ripoff, though I admit they do kind of fall into the same investigation formula Double utilized. But that can be as much attributed to, again, the two shows having the same writers.
Drive initially was not as balanced in its plotting either, so while I enjoy it for what it is, it's not among my top 5.
Writer rankings. I'm not really doing that analytic this time since I'm doing this series out of order. And I kinda did it when touching on the Double Search arc. Double's power is in his versatility of his elaborate form change, but even once going extreme, they are only just barely stronger than Kuga Mighty form. His greatest strength comes from finding and taking advantage of his enemies' weak points, and then unleashing the full powers of their memories, using them to overwhelm far stronger opponents than them stat-wise. But conversely, high-speed movement tends to be their largest weakness, as users of that can counter their defensive and evasionary tactics, alongside not giving them time they may need to formulate a plan, which is why most of them were ultimately defeated by Axel. So even if I were using my normal analysis of the likely outcome of the who win in a fight scenario, I can tell you Double likely wouldn't end up ranking in the top 5.
But as for the series itself, we're not quite done yet. As this was the point, the movie wars were in full swing. There's Double's epilogue story still to cover, on top of the Double Returns V cinemas I've alluded to before. And oh boy, are both of those a mixed bag.